So this is the Owen submachine gun. This gun came out back in 1938. It was designed by a dude named Evelyn Owen out of Australia. So this is an Australian-made submachine gun. Pretty weird-looking gun. Ugly, if I'm quite honest. Looks like someone made this in their garage, which I guess they kind of did. The story of the submachine gun, of the Owen gun, is actually pretty interesting. Evelyn Owen, I guess as a youth, kind of just made and modified guns for fun. The prototype of the Owen gun looked a little bit different than the form factor that we see here today. Apparently, the prototype shot 22 caliber, and it had like a cylindrical style magazine, kind of like a revolver. So a little bit different of a form factor. So yeah, Evelyn designed the gun. He shot it around a little bit, had a little bit of fun with it. At one point, he pushed it to the Australian military to see if they would be interested in adopting it as their primary submachine gun. The Australian military said, "Nah, we're not interested, like, at all." As a matter of fact, so Evelyn said okay, and kind of just put the Owen gun prototype in like a little sack, like a knapsack or something like that, and just threw it on the side of the house. Never kind of thought about it again. As a matter of fact, Evelyn Owen actually went to join the Australian military shortly afterwards. So time passed and Evan kind of forgot all about the original Owen gun prototype. It was Evelyn Owen's neighbor, a gentleman by the name of Vincent Wardell, that actually happened to just stumble upon the Owen gun prototype, again, in that little knapsack or in that sack that he kind of just threw on the side of the house. So I was actually able to find a picture of the prototype Owen gun. So this was the exact version, apparently, that Vincent Wardell found in that sack near the Owens house. So taking a look at it, we have the cylindrical style magazine here. Apparently it was chambered in 22 short. Nice little side profile up here. Believe it or not, this was the foregrip of the rifle, of the submachine gun. Then we have the standard rear grip back here. So if you are a right-handed shooter, your right hand would be back here, then your left hand would be on this foregrip here. As you see, there's not like a traditional style trigger. Believe it or not, this little leaf spring here acted as the trigger. I think there's a better picture down here. So this was the actual trigger mechanism. And how the process worked was you would pull this bolt all the way back, and it would rest on that lip. And in order to fire the gun, your thumb would depress the trigger, the bolt would slam forward. I'm assuming there's a firing pin in there that would then fire the round out of the barrel. So this was the original Owen gun prototype. Pretty cool. There's more information on this website here, Historical Firearms. So check it out. Turns out Mr. Wardell was actually the manager of a steel factory, or a steel working factory, and he took a lot of interest in the Owen gun. So Vincent Wardell and his team of engineers, along with Evelyn Owen, in a few years down the road, kind of worked to develop this iteration of the Owen gun that we see here today. So the ultimate goal of Wardell, Owen, and the whole engineering team was for the Australian military to adopt the Owen gun as its SMG, as its primary submachine gun for the Australian troops. But that was kind of a big issue for the Australian military. The Australian military did not like submachine guns, like, at all. They were more so a fan of the Lee Enfield style rifles, or the more full size, larger caliber machine guns. They didn't too much care for the whole submachine gun, purpose in the military. Also, Australia really relied on Britain for a lot of their munitions and weaponry. They actually imported a lot of their stuff from Britain, and as a matter of fact, around this period of time, the Australians were just waiting to get a shipment of the British Sten gun. So they really were not interested in the Owen gun. So keep in mind, this is all happening during wartime. So Britain is getting hammered by the Germans. You know, they're tied up fighting the Nazis over there, and they're actually not able to export the large shipment of Sten guns to the Australians. Also, around the same time, the Japanese are also pressuring Australia. So there's like a fear of impending Japanese infiltration of Australia. So the Australian military, they're kind of in a bind. They need munitions, they need weapons, and they aren't able to get their Sten guns. So during this time, Wardell and his team, they're constantly modifying and improving the Owen gun, hoping that the Australian military will finally adopt it. The military really did kind of just string them along. At one point, the Australian military said, well, you know, if you make the Owen gun in 38 caliber, then maybe we'll test it out. So Wardell and his crew went and made a bunch of 38 caliber Owen guns, brought it back to the military. Military said, well, maybe not 38 caliber. Probably let's try for 45 ACP. Again, Wardell and his team went and made a bunch of Owen guns in 45 ACP. Took it back. Again, the military said, well, maybe not 45 ACP. How about 455 Webley? So it was just back and forth with the Australian military, and they really kind of strung them along and had them go back and make all of these changes to the Owen gun, even when they still weren't really interested. So they finally settled on the 9mm cartridge. So that's what this Owen gun here is chambered in, 9mm. And when they went to actually do the field testing, they tested the Owen gun against the Thompson, so the American-made Thompson, the British Sten gun, as well as one of the German submachine guns, I think the MP40 or something. So they tested the Owen gun with these other, submachine guns that have been tried and proven during the war. Turns out the Owen gun outperformed all of them. This was the most reliable submachine gun platform, or one of the most reliable submachine gun platforms in that time. Pretty crazy, because the Australians kept on just writing them off. Turns out they ended up making a pretty awesome submachine gun here. So just looking at it, again, very, very bizarre looking gun. Looks like it was just pieced together by a plumber or something in a garage or something. Looking back here at the stock, we have like a single piece wire stock. It's nothing fancy. There's no wood there. Some of the later versions did have like a wooden stock, but I believe the earlier ones was just wire. Coming up, we have the charging handle here. As you can see, the sights are offset to the left. We have a rear left peephole and then a front blade sight up here. One of the interesting things about the Owen gun was the fire selector here. So apparently a lot of submachine guns during this era had two modes, either safe or full auto fire. The Owen gun had safe in the far back. It had semi-auto here in the middle, and then far forward it had full auto. So just the option of the semi-auto and the full auto was a characteristic of the Owen gun. Then coming on up, we have this kind of odd looking trigger guard here. It has this little hump up in the front, which I think is actually purposeful. We'll talk more about that here in a second. I watched them fire this on some YouTube videos, and this hump, I believe, actually does serve a purpose in the trigger guard. And then we have the Owen gun's claim to fame, this top feeding magazine. So this is one of the features that really made the Owen gun super reliable, right? Because it relied on gravity, or gravity actually assisted with the feeding mechanism. Of course, there's a spring in this magazine. So this is a box style magazine that held 33 rounds of 9mm. There's a spring in there to help push the bullets down, but also gravity also helped push the rounds down into the action. And then we have the ejection port right up under here. So one of the benefits of this top mounting is the gravity, which helps feed the weapon, and this action is, I guess, the ejection port is on the underside, so nothing could fall into the ejection port. You know, it can only fall out because of gravity. That was one big advantage to the Owen gun, and that's what helped make it so reliable during wartime. So back to the trigger guard here. If you've ever seen these things fire, so like I said, the spent cases are ejected out the bottom of the gun here. I think this hump here helps to deflect the hot brass away from the shooter's hand. Again, check out some of the YouTube videos. You'll see, you know, brass flying out of there, and I think that hump helps to deflect it forward. Coming on up, you have another interesting characteristic. We have this forward grip here, which helped with the ergonomics as far as recoil control, things like that. I also forgot to mention this big takedown pin right here. So in order to take the barrel off of the Owen gun, you would pull this takedown pin up, pull that pin up, and then the barrel comes forward. The barrel, as you can see, is ribbed up here at the very top there to help with heat dissipation. And yeah, nothing fancy. This is not really a fancy gun at all, but turned out to be super reliable during wartime. The Owen gun weighed about 10 pounds without ammo, so definitely heavier by today's standards. I mean, most 16-inch ARs are 7-8 pounds at the most, but this bad boy was 10 pounds without ammo. Pretty interesting gun there. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed.